All right, so I really wanted to get on this topic because we just got breaking news. Literally, like, what time is it? 5:36 happened maybe an hour ago. Jahan Dotson did just get traded to the Philadelphia Eagles for I believe it was Dotson in a fifth for a third and two seventh round picks. So, really interesting. It just literally happened moments ago, and by moments I mean an hour ago. So I really wanted to get on this topic. We talk about Jane Daniels. We talk about Caleb Williams a lot. Like I said, I still think Jane Daniels is the most polished quarterback ready for the NFL. Caleb Williams has the highest ceiling. I'm going to stand on that. And then it kind of changes. It kind of changes my vision. I think if they've had, if they've kept Terry McLaurin with Jahan Dotson there, and then also Zach Ertz still being a decent tight end for them. And they could have been really interesting with having Brian Robertson and Austin Eckler as their backs. It could have been a very, very interesting roster, because it is a tough division and their schedule is not easy at all. Uh, and we talked about Rookie of the Year winners, and I'm probably going to lean Caleb Williams now just with having Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and having DeAndre Swift and Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett at tight ends. I do think now I'd probably lean more towards Caleb Williams winning it just schedule-wise, and they just traded Jahan Dotson. It would have been nice to have two really good receivers to throw to. I think personally, I was big on Jahan Dotson. I still am. I'm still a believer in him. I still think he has some stuff to prove. But it was the same way with Nico Collins. I think it just took a good quarterback to find Nico Collins in the open field, like Jaden Daniels could have found Jahan Dotson. But like I said an hour ago, big trade, Jahan Dotson going to the Philadelphia Eagles, going to the divisional, I wouldn't say rivals, but divisional opponents. But yeah, let's just dive in. Is it Caleb Williams or is it Jaden Daniels? Who would you pick for your team? Say you're building a team and you're in the same situation one of these teams are in. Would you go Jaden Daniels or would you go Caleb Williams? I'd still go Jaden Daniels personally, but really just who I think is going to have the better year now. I think it might be Caleb Williams because schedule wise, like I said, not easy for the Commanders. You got at the Bucks versus New York, then at Cincinnati on Monday night, at Arizona, and then after that kind of 4-game stretch there, you got versus Cleveland, at Baltimore. I don't think that Cleveland and Baltimore game is going to be pretty for Jaden Daniels personally. Two very good defenses, very good front sevens. Same with the Bengals as well. Could be a little ugly. Then you got versus Carolina, which defensively they're pretty sound as well. Chicago, I'm not worried about too much. At New York, I'm not worried about too much, especially week 2 as well versus New York. I'm not too worried about. But dude, this stretch here, guys, this could really like solidify how much better Jaden Daniels is over Caleb Williams. It's just this stretch of games alone, and it's the rest of the season, right? You got versus Pittsburgh, at Philadelphia, versus Dallas, versus Tennessee. Then you got to go at New Orleans after a bye week, versus Philadelphia again, versus Atlanta, and then at Dallas. So in that stretch of games right there, and what is that, 8-game stretch right there with the bye week in the middle of those 4 games between, if Jaden Daniels goes 4-4 in those, I'd be impressed. If he beats Tennessee, if he beats Atlanta, if he beats one of the divisional teams like Dallas or the Eagles, and if he beats Pittsburgh or at New Orleans. And as a Saints fan, as you can see behind me there, that's tough. That's tough for any rookie quarterback coming into the Superdome with the loud Superdome with the Saints fans screaming and yelling, and then you got our front seven, Chase Young, Cam Jordan, and all these guys ready to go. It's really tough to play in the Superdome. It's not easy, especially with Demario Davis and the secondary that we have. So, if he goes 4-4, consider me impressed. That is a really impressive 4-4. Even if he goes 3-4, honestly, if he beats the Steelers, the Titans, and the Falcons or the Saints, if he goes 3-4, that's still impressive to me because Eagles and Dallas, that's tough. With Micah Parsons there, it's tough. But if he wins, if he even goes like 5-3, that's way above expectations for me. But going to Chicago now with Caleb Williams. Listen, and I'm sure Bears fans sort of agree with me here. I'm not going to say 100%, but I'm sure they agree with me. This has to be your year. You have everything. You have Keenan Allen, you have DJ Moore, you have DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, a decent defense, a new quarterback that has very high ceiling and potential, and a schedule that's not too difficult. It's not too difficult. You got versus the Titans. That should be a win. At Houston, that will be a really good game between Stroud and Caleb Williams. Who knows? At Indianapolis, might not be a win with Anthony Richardson healthy in that Colts defense. You might go 1-2 in your first 3 games, but versus the Rams, that should be a win. Versus Carolina, that should be a win. Versus Jacksonville, I can see you losing that, so that's 3-3, right? You're already 3-3, or I guess you're 3-3 going into Week 7 bye week. Then you come out and you play Jaden Daniels, which I think should be the game of the year for rookie quarterback wise. At Washington, that will be interesting. Toss up, really. I'm going to throw that as a toss up. At Arizona should be a win. So technically now you're 3-3. Let's call Washington. Oh, who do I give it to? At Washington, I'll give Jaden Daniels the benefit of the doubt. That's a loss. 3-4. Arizona, at Arizona should be a win. Personally, should be a win. That's 4-4. So now you're going versus New England should be a win. 5-4 versus Green Bay is probably going to be a loss, unfortunately. 5-5. Minnesota should be a win at home. 6-5 at Detroit, and then at San Francisco. That's 2 straight losses. So you're looking at 6-5. So you're 6-8 now, and then at Minnesota should be a win. I think you beat Minnesota twice, and then I think you beat. You don't beat Detroit, but you beat Seattle, and then you lose to Green Bay at Green Bay. But other than that, with the weapons that they have on offense, with Caleb Williams' high ceiling and the potential and just the expectations that people expect Caleb Williams to have, that's why I'm going with Jaden Daniels. I'd rather have Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. There's such high expectations, and I don't know for Bear fans what your expectations are. Bears fans, let me know what your expectation is. I don't expect a playoff from y'all. If that's what you're expecting, then that might be a little too high and too much of an ask for Caleb Williams. But for me, that's why I'm going with Jaden Daniels every time. There's no expectations, right? You're not hearing this, oh, the number 1 pick overall should be this, or blah, 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 this, or that, or Jaden Daniels needs to make the playoffs with the team. No, none of those expectations with him. It's just Jaden Daniels on the Commander, go out there and play, right? Caleb Williams, on the other hand, expectation. And the problem with Caleb Williams is the stuff he said before he got drafted. If these certain teams don't pick me, I'm not going pro. If I'm not number 1 overall pick, I'm not going pro. If I don't get ownership stake in the team, I'm not going pro. Just this constant stuff before the draft, constant talk that he said. But there comes the expectation now. You demanded that you're this great. You even said, I saw an article where he said himself that he is better than Mahomes. Like, dude, that is so crazy to even say. But regardless, if you have that much confidence in yourself and the expectation is to make the playoffs, then we expect it as Bears fan. Well, I'm not a Bears fan, but I'm saying we as a Bears, if I was a Bears fan, I would expect the playoffs then. Honestly, I expect a playoff then from you. I expect you to beat Detroit. I expect you to beat Green Bay. I expect you to win both against Minnesota. I expect you to beat all these teams. I expect you to go to San Francisco and beat them then if you're so great. But that's why I'm going with Jaden Daniels. Guy does not talk the talk because he knows to stay humble, and not only just stay humble, but he knows how good he is that he doesn't need to. He's going to show it on the field. He doesn't need to tell people that I should have been the number 1 pick, or I'm this, or I'm that, or whatever. He is as good as he is, and he's going to show it on the field. That's why, personally, I'd go with Jaden Daniels. And not only that, just looking at their rushing stats last year, Jaden Daniels, 1,100 rushing yards as a quarterback, as well as, 3,800 yards passing. That's impressive for me. That means he has the ability to extend plays, but not only extend plays, have designed QB runs for him. That's very good for a quarterback in the NFL now. If you're able to throw downfield but still design QB runs and it can extend plays, I'm going with that over Caleb Williams any day. Honestly, personally, going with that any day. But regardless, Big news coming out of Washington. Jahan Dotson traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, to their divisional opponents. Kind of shakes up the Commanders. The Commanders' offense, just having Terry McLaurin really as a receiver, Zach Ertz, and then Eckler and Brian Robertson out there. I still think it's going to be a very interesting team. I don't think they're as good as the Bears are offensively now, just not having those two receivers. They were up there. I still wouldn't say they were better with the Bears with Jahan Dotson, but having him made it close. But, Bears having Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, that already makes them better. But, again, my final thoughts on it, I'd personally take Jane Daniels over Caleb Williams, fantasy-wise and just regular-wise as well. But just because of the expectation Caleb Williams has to play up to, because you got a really good team around you, man. There should be no that's what I'm trying to say. There should be no excuse, literally zero excuse, to not have a great year with the offense that they are providing for you. DJ Moore, like I said, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift. There should be zero reason that you should not perform well with that offense. So that's just my final take. And like I said, breaking news. And it'll be interesting to see, especially that Bears at Commanders game. Should be a really interesting game to see this year. The two rookie quarterbacks going at it. So. All right, so let's get into our next segment. So this is also kind of based off what we did on the first one. It's would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Nabers? These are the two top receivers picked in their class, along with Rome Odunze. But we're kind of going to go over him just because we already did Caleb Williams with the Bears. So let's kind of dive in between Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison. Both really standout receivers in their respected schools of LSU and Ohio State. Both could have won the Best Receiver Award. Marvin Harrison, of course, took it. I think it should have been Malik Nabers, not even saying that as an LSU fan. He just had an overall better year stat-wise. But it really just comes down to quarterback-wise, right? I mean, if we're not talking about on their respective teams of the Cardinals and the Giants, if I'm just picking one between the two, I rather have Nabers than Marvin Harrison, right? I mean, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison is a more deep threat kind of receiver, so it takes a special kind of quarterback to hit him deep when he creates space down there. But the thing with Malik Nabers is the same thing with Jamar Chase, and I'm saying this in the nicest way possible, but both put up great stats with Burrow and Jaden Daniels, both of those receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not saying they're going to be the same in the pros, but I genuinely believe that Malik Nabers is like Jamar Chase, and Brian Thomas is like Justin Jefferson. They both had the identical play styles at LSU. They both put up kind of the same numbers around that at LSU as well. Malik Nabers is one of those receivers that he could take a 5-yard slant route and turn it into a 40-yard catch and run, So that's the reason I'm picking Nabers over Marvin Harrison, is because Marvin Harrison is more of a deep downfield threat. In my opinion, he can also kind of turn a 5-yard slant into a 40-yard run. But just size-wise, I'd rather have Malik Nabers kind of doing that, just because he reminds me a lot of Jamar Chase. And we all know Jamar Chase is a legend at doing that. I mean, he did it against Kansas City as well. I remember, I think it was 2022, 2023. It was the Chiefs at the Bengals in a regular season game. Jamar Chase took a 5-yard slant route, ran it like 50 yards down the field, because he can do that. He can make plays after the catch. He's a playmaker after the catch. Same thing with Malik Nabers. I think he's the same way. But again, just based off this year, it comes down to like quarterbacks, and I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He is. It's tough. Daniel Jones is a tough quarterback to love. But, when he played 16 games last year for the Giants, he had a 67.2 completion percentage. And Kyler Murray, in just the 11 games he played in 2022, a guy who can't really stay healthy, who is injury prone. Again, he only played, last year? I believe he played 4 games? 5? Oh, he played 8 games. 8 games. It seemed like 4 or 5, though. But, no. Daniel Jones is a guy who can stay healthy. And I do think He's not a great passer, but 62.7 completion percentage in 2022 when he was healthy and played 16 games, that was top 10 in the league. In fact, that was 7. That was eighth in the league in completion percentage, or tied seventh, however you want to swing that. But either way, he was tied that year in 2022. In fact, had a better like by point one, but that's not the point. He had just as good as a completion percentage as Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying he's on that level. I'm not saying he's as good as them, but when it's completion percentage wise, he's completing 67.2% of his passes compared to Kyler Murray, who played in 2022 11 games and only completed 66.4%. Not bad either, but like I said, he's very injury prone. So when they're playing, on their respective teams, the Cardinal and the Giants, I rather have Daniel Jones as my quarterback just because he can stay healthy. I want a guy who's around 70% completion, like Daniel Jones is. And I just want a guy who can stay healthy. He has experience. The Giants obviously gave him a big contract, so they believe in him and they believe in his potential still. That's crazy to me, but I'm not going to question the front office of what the Giants are doing with Daniel Jones in that offense. I think they have a vision. I think they're trying to carry it out as best as they can. Anyway, give me Daniel Jones and Malik Nabers over Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison, just because who knows, Kyler Murray, there's been those rumors and or discussions of him not looking at the playbook, studying film, doing anything of that nature, like trying to prepare for the games, as well as he can't stay healthy, only playing 11 games in 2022, and then 2023 only playing 8 games. And you could blame the O-line as well, but it's just one of those things where it's like it's not correlating to on the field of his skill. I know he does have skill. I know he can get, like Bobby said, I know he's going to get that thing down the field. But give me Daniel Jones, who is a more consistent quarterback in the fact that he's not injury prone. He does have more experience on the field than Kyler Murray does, just because he's on the field playing. So in that sense, I think I'm going to go with Nabers over Marvin Harrison. And I think, schedule-wise, again, the Giants have a tough schedule. I'm not saying that. But it's one of those things where you kind of overlook the fact that even with the tough schedule, I think this is the time where Nabers can show how good he is, Same thing with Marvin Harrison, too. Marvin Harrison, as long as Kyler Murray stays healthy, he can show how good he is, too. But personally, I think with just the expectation of living up to it and being in a tough division, I think that brings kind of what Nabers is, He's got that swag factor. He's got that confidence in himself to be that receiver. And I really do think in a division which takes a lot of confidence and swag to play in with the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Commanders, it takes a lot of confidence in your ability, but not only your ability in the offense itself. I think he can bring that confidence from LSU to the Giants and be able to succeed in the NFC East with those teams. And I've said it time and time again, the Cowboys, not so much. When they show up against like the Commanders and the Giants, they show up, They beat them by 20, 30 points for some reason I don't know. But the Eagles have been very suspect against teams like this. They've been struggling. Like I said, in the Commanders game last year, they took them to overtime. 34-31, had to win in overtime. It was still a win for the Eagles, I know. But an overtime game against the Commanders is like, come on, So, overall, give me Malik Nabers. Personally speaking, fantasy-wise, and just building a team around normally over Marvin Harrison just because of Kyler Murray. I'm just not sure about him. I'm not sure if he's going to stay healthy. I'm not sure if he's going to be consistent enough for Marvin Harrison to succeed on the Cardinals. I don't really know what the vision of that team is. You got Trey McBride, James Conner, the running back they just picked up too. It'll come back to me in a moment. But regardless, it's just tough for me. It's really tough. That's what it was. It was Trey Benson, the rookie running back. But it's just tough because I don't really know an identity for this team, There's really no identity. I mean, Marvin Harrison's basically their number one guy at this point. So identity-wise, I don't really know what they're looking at just because of Kyler Murray's health and how much he plays, and just overall what they're going forward to do for that team. Is it going to be more run heavy, or is it going to be more pass heavy with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison? I don't really know. Too many questions for me. Give me, like I said, give me Malik Nabers in a more stable condition. Uh, of course, they got rid of Saquon Barkley, who's on the Eagles now. I think it would have been better if they had Barkley with Nabers and Jones. But like I said, I'm not going to question what the Giants are doing front office-wise with the offense. I'm just going to accept the fact that they have a vision and they hope it works out the way I think they hope it works out. I'm not really sure if it's going to work out with Daniel Jones like that. But like I said, they have a vision. At least they know where they want to get to with the offense compared to the Cardinals. That's all I got to say. I think they have a better vision and a better understanding of where they want to go compared to the Cardinals. So, Malik Nabers over Marvin Harrison, in my opinion. So, all right, so getting into our next segment here, this is one that's been pretty interesting conversation surrounding college football ever since his hiring, which is Kellen and Bama. Is the expectation too high for them? What is the expectation? I think the expectation for every Bama fan is just trying to get them into the playoffs. I'm not sure if an SEC championship or a national championship is kind of at the expectation. I hope Bama fans don't think that is the case for Kellen and this Bama team, losing a lot of guys to the transfer portal and losing a lot of guys to the draft as well. I don't know. I feel like as a Bama fan and like I'm sure the football organization's hoping for a national champ, or at least an SEC champ. I just think anything in the college football playoffs is suitable for his first year there, for Kellen's first year at Bama, moving from Washington. For me, I think it's going to be a struggle, and I'm taking a look at Alabama's schedule here, and, they open up against Western Kentucky, South Florida, and Wisconsin. That's going to be kind of the easy victories that they're going to get big wins on, and that's going to be kind of the facade of the actual root of how the team is going to play. I think it's not going to give the full story of how this Bama team is, because right after that, they got to go versus Georgia at a night game. That's going to be a very difficult game, and then, of course, at Vanderbilt should be an easy win. Versus South Carolina at Tennessee, which I don't think they're going to win that game. Personally, Tennessee fans, I think this is your year to beat Bama again at home. I don't think they're going to come into Neyland Stadium and beat you guys. Versus Missouri will be a very interesting game. Missouri's not a team that's easy to beat finally, so we'll see how that goes. And then you got to go at LSU after that, Death Valley at night. Not saying this as an LSU fan, I promise. I don't think they're going to go into LSU and beat them personally. And then you got Mercer after that. Home game should be an easy home game there. Then you got at Oklahoma. Should win that one. And then versus Auburn, who really knows? It's really just a toss-up every single year. Auburn really comes to play in that game. So depending on how Auburn's year's going, they might have nothing to lose, show up and beat you. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, I don't think the expectation should be too high. College football playoff should be a suitable expectation for you guys, because Kellen's coming from the Pac-12, which is not, week in and week out a tough game every single week that you have to prepare for. Although looking at Kellen's record against top 25 team, he is 12-2 over his career. And then looking at Husky schedule last year, they faced Oregon at home, beat them by 3. That was a number 8 seed team. And then you go at USC, beat them by 10. They were ranked 20th. Versus Utah, you beat them by 7. Then you go at Oregon State, who was ranked 11th. You beat them by 2. And then you versus Oregon again in the Pac-12 championship, which you then beat them by 3. Then you go and play Texas in the All-State Sugar Bowl, which was the semifinal. And then you beat them 37-31, but lose to Michigan in the national champ game. So all in all, I mean, when it comes down to it, you've already beaten an SEC team with Washington. I'm not saying it's any different, but Penix and Milroe are a completely different quarterback, completely different. Milroe is not really the type of guy to be a downfield, deep pass threat. I mean, he's not. I mean, looking at his stats last year, he only had 2,800 yards passing, 65% completion, 23 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. His rating was a solid 172, though, so it got the job done. But with Jace McClellan gone, Jermaine Burton's gone to the NFL, Isaiah Bond over to Texas now. You got a lot of holes in your offense. It's going to be tough to fill those holes. But It's just he's a completely different quarterback compared to Michael Penix. Michael Penix was a sure downfield threat. They couldn't play the run that tight because Penix could launch that thing down the field and it's over your head in a heartbeat. So just thinking about the expectations of Bama, and like I said, the schedule's not tough, but you do have a couple of tough opponents: Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, Georgia, Auburn. Um, I mean, like I said, I think a playoff spot is comfortable. I don't see you guys making the SEC champ this year. Personally, I don't see you guys being the crazy, threatening team that you once were. It might take a couple years to get back to that. If you ever, I don't think he'll ever live up to what Saban is, and I don't think you should. I think when Kellen comes into Bama, you should not compare him to Nick Saban. You should not compare anything he does to Nick Saban. You should not compare what the win loss at Bama, the recruiting class wise. I don't think any of that should be compared to what Nick Saban did, because Nick Saban's in a class of his own. He is. It's tough not to say the greatest college coach of all time. I think he is, but Bear Bryant as well, and a couple other coaches out there that could be easily up for the running as the greatest of all time. Nick Saban, obviously, in my opinion, is the greatest of all time. But regardless of that, don't compare. Don't compare. Don't say, well, Nick Saban's first year was this, and then his first year is this, and our recruiting class used to be this, and now it's this. It doesn't matter. Give it some time. Let him set up what his program is, what his identity is, not what Saban's was. Let him set up what he wants to have an identity for the team, have an identity for the program itself, the football program itself. And I'm sure, as it always does for Bama fans, I'm not really sure how, and I'm not really sure how it works out for the Bama football program as well, but I'm sure it's going to work out. It always does. It hasn't not worked out before for you guys. So, other than that, I mean, give it some time. Again, it's going to be a couple tough years in front of you. I don't think you're not going to be the cream de crop of the SEC anymore. It's going to be Texas, Georgia, maybe LSU. I'm just going to sneak it in there because I'm an LSU fan, but maybe LSU, but Texas, Georgia, really the cream de crop of the SEC. I'm not counting you guys out for a playoff spot, though. I think you guys still make the playoffs somehow, some way. It'd be hard for you guys not to make the playoffs with the schedule I'm looking at. But it's very possible that if you lose to Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, and Missouri, that you're not going to make the playoffs. Because right now I'm looking at the schedule here. You got 3 wins, so you're 3-0. Lose to Georgia probably. That's 3-1. At Vanderbilt, 4-1 versus South Carolina, 5-1. Like I said, you got to make it out with 2 wins in this 3-game stretch. I think you go at Tennessee and lose. So was that 5-1? Yeah, 5-1 at Tennessee and lose versus Missouri. It's tough. It's tough, but I think you get the win at Missouri at home. I think you guys bring the energy there, and I think you bring the passion of the football program for killing in the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think you win that one. So you're 6-2. Well, yeah, 6-2. And then I think you lose at LSU. Personally, I'm sorry. I don't think you come in the Death Valley with the new coach just because he's not used to what is Death Valley at night, like Nick Saban was, how to prepare for that, noise factor and everything. So I'm going to say LSU's a loss. That's 6-3. 7-3 Mercer. Do y'all beat Oklahoma, though? Yeah, let's do it. Y'all beat Oklahoma. That's 8-3, and then I think you beat Auburn at home too. So that's 9-3. That's not a bad year. That's really not a bad year. 9-3. I think that will get you good enough to make the playoffs. Personally, I think the committee is very. Man, I don't want to make a controversial statement here, but the committee loves Alabama. I'm just gonna be honest. They love it. They love for y'all to get in when y'all can. So I think y'all make and sneak into the top 12 with a 9-3 record. If you go 10-2, that's impressive for me. I think 10-2 is a very impressive record, and I think y'all should be proud of that. But 9-3 is where I'm comfortable of saying where you guys are going to be at on the year. So yeah, 9-3 Alabama. I think the expectation is the playoffs for you guys. I don't think it should be anything higher. I wouldn't boo the team. I wouldn't down the team if they don't win a national champ, or if they don't win a SEC championship like they did last year for you guys. I wouldn't do any of that personally. I think college football playoffs is a great expectation to have, and nothing more than that. Just because first year for Kellen and this Alabama team, which is kind of new with the transfer portal and the draft players leaving. So I think that's where the expectation is for Alabama. So. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. There is a part that you might hear in the podcast version that didn't make it onto the show version due to a corrupted file, which will be fixed in the next episode, I assure you. I just really wanted to talk for a second about the Discord that I've been talking about the past few episodes. It is going to be done by this weekend, so it should be up by Monday. If you guys are interested in joining the Discord, you can come talk to me and Bobby about sports, talk to other viewers about sports, as well as also have an interest form that I've mentioned before. If you're interested in joining the show for a topic that we're going to be discussing, and if you're interested in doing that, please put the interest form there as well. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and we'll be back tomorrow, of course. And I'll see you guys then. Take care. I packed a bowl and I fell asleep. I never have the guts to be